Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by 1, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by 1.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. I'm joined by Brian Henry. I'm joined by Pete Worth. And this is the celebratory edition, gentlemen, of the Real Chili Podcast. What a game.
What the hell did we just watch?
Swish, 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 swish.
On a night when Brian Henry predicted that the Fiserv Forum would be empty, it would be a poor atmosphere.
I'm stunned.
The only thing hotter than the crowd
this will
Marcus
be
Howard, and that kid could not miss in the second half. And oh yeah, before we got to the second half and Marcus Howard scored 25 straight, Marquette flexed some of the biggest and best defensive muscle that I have seen from a Marquette team in a decade, if not more. It's an astounding performance, and I think unquestionably Marquette's best win maybe in the past few years.
I've got a hot take for you off the top, and as exciting as that Villanova game was a couple years ago, you all just watched the best victory in the Steve Wojciechowski era.
Yep.
Bar none.
Yeah, they keep on getting better.
Bar none. That Villanova game was fun. Kate and Reinhardt threw in a bunch of ridiculous shots. That was a 2 elite level teams for that day trading major punches. Wow, is Buffalo good. Marquette went down early, battles back with Howard on the bench, gets themselves into a 1-point lead in half, sets themselves up for the best second half performance I've ever seen in a college basketball game that I've watched. I mean, big performance. Theo John, 6 blocks. Get the frick out of here. Unbelievable. I'm seriously, I'm at a loss for word. That was as much fun as I've had watching a Marquette game since Buzz was coaching
From start to finish, one of the most entertaining basketball games, not only for us watching Marquette, but I would say in college basketball this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Duke Gonzaga game. I watched that and was just blown away by the NBA talent. But in terms of like pure college basketball, I don't know, je ne sais quoi, like that was so much fun to watch. And then even in the first half, and then Marcus goes crazy in the second. And I don't know. I was like laying on my couch doing the old Molly Shannon SNL bit, kicking my legs up in the air. I love it. I love it. I love it.
So, folks, if you were traveling home for the holidays, if you were for some reason caught in a situation where you couldn't watch this game, 1, we feel terrible for you. 2, we're going to spend the next 20 or so minutes trying to recap and recount and highlight the game as best for you as we can. So, Marquette came away with a 103-85 victory. Marcus Howard put together 45 points in the second half. At one point, scored 25 points straight. But before we even get to all that, it feels like there was another game before Marcus Howard even showed up. Marcus Howard was in foul trouble throughout most of the first half. He had 3 fouls. Didn't play a lot. I don't have the split stat sheet in front of me, but didn't get a lot of minutes in the first half because of that foul trouble. And what we saw was a Marquette team that got Joey Hauser involved, that got Jamal Cain in spots involved, that got Sam Hauser involved. Chartouni did a couple of nice things. And Theo John defensively was an animal. That first half was a game unto itself, but I think it was the more impressive half from a team standpoint.
From a team standpoint, sure. I mean, especially because we go down 9 and us as Marquette fans think, oh, shit.
Here we go.
Here we go. This is the same Marquette team we've come to know over the last 3 years. We get out to a big deficit, and we're going to kind of just let it happen. But the difference between previous year's teams and this year's team is toughness and defensive interior, just tenacity. And that was created by Theo John and Ed Morrow. I think Ed Morrow was big in that first half. He didn't really need him in the second because Theo was so great blocking shots. But I thought Ed was big. Theo was incredible, and our defense was everywhere. I mean, at least in the last maybe 30 minutes of the game. I would say in the beginning of the game when Buffalo got off to that big run, Marquette was allowing their point guard to get anywhere, and Buffalo got any shot they wanted. And we really locked down, and it was awesome to watch.
I think part of it's just because that's a damn good team, Pete.
Absolutely.
That Carruthers kid is freaking lightning fast and can get
Same with Jordan.
Yeah, can get pretty much anywhere on the court that he wants. To your defensive point, and it's not often on this podcast that we look back on the wise sayings of analyst Stephen Bardo, but I will give Mr. Bardo some credit because he said it early, and he said that Ed Morrow is playing like a man. And there was a stretch in the first half, Pete, where you're right, where things were starting to slip away. He had a couple defensive sequences, offensive rebounds that it kept them alive. And then Theo, we've outlined already. Only scored, I think, 6 or 7 points. The rebounds and the blocks, I mean, they might as well have been two-handed nuts and face dunks. I mean, that's how powerful they felt. And that is another level of basketball when you can get rebounds and blocks to be that impactful for your team. They needed all of them today.
Theo finished with 6 points. Let's give him a shout out. Here's his stat line. Theo finished with 6 points, just 1 turnover, 7 blocks, according to the ESPN box score, 3 assists. I think he had one pretty little dump off to Jamal Cain, who finished down low, and 9 rebounds. He was 2 for 3 from the line. Unquestionably Theo John's best performance. And we were saying before we hopped on the pod, and you mentioned this, Brian, that even if Theo hadn't put this together, we'd still be saying Ed Morrow had a good game. I think, you're going to hear it a little bit in a pod we post in a few days with Paint Touches and us. But unquestionably, one of the biggest differences between this team and last year's team is toughness, Pete. And you said it perfectly right there. We set the tone. Theo John got that tee after throwing down, after dunking and screaming in that guy's face.
What a soft-ass technical foul that was.
Super soft. And it seemed like that set the tone.
I mean, he deserved it. Come on.
Sure, of course.
Right in the dude's face.
He just flexed and yelled it. Yeah, because I just –
Yeah, but he looked right at the guy. If he looked straight up in the air, there's no tee.
That's very true. Yeah.
What I loved, though, I mean, there's so much to love about this game. But – remember at the beginning of the game, I think you guys all saw it. I'm sure anybody listening to this probably tuned in at least 5 minutes before the game and saw Nate Oates talk to his team in the locker room saying, if we outwork them, we will win this game. We will outwork them. We will out-rebound them, and we will win this game. 48-34 rebound advantage Marquette. And the rebounding was incredible tonight.
Yes.
Awesome. From the tip, we were great. Even there was that one possession where we allowed 3 on one possession, but they still held them without any points. Besides that one possession, Marquette was absolutely fantastic on the boards.
You don't get to score 25 points in a row unless you're grabbing the ball at the other end. I mean, Marcus's explosion was a big part to our defense and rebounding. As all that stuff has to come together. That say it again, as good a performance as we have seen in years, and I think the best one of the Steve Wojciechowski era.
And I loved us taking advantage of their fucking Davisons. Their attempts at Davisons, flopping. Joey Hauser drills a 3 in the eye of that guy for his 3rd one in a row. Sam also had one. Oh, man. So many awesome moments tonight.
So many awesome moments, and we haven't even gotten to the second half yet. In that first half, while we're giving a ton of credit to Marquette, if you didn't get a chance to watch the game, Brian, I think you mentioned this earlier, one of you did, this was blow for blow in the first half. Marquette would make a little run. Buffalo would come right back with an and one and a couple scores. and they were going back and forth. It was a terrific game. It ended up at halftime being a 39-38 one-point lead for Marquette. And that's what we went into the half with. And early in the second half, it continued to be the same game that it was in the first half. It didn't look like there were too many adjustments at halftime, at least that took hold early in the second half until Marcus Howard got going. Brian, did you see anything early in that second half before Marcus really started going, or did it look like kind of a continuation of the first half to you?
I mean, looking back at our text chain, just to kind of refresh what you were thinking at different points of the game, I had here just a couple thoughts of just this is going to go down to the final possession. Mm-hmm. They're kind of trading buckets back and forth. That Carruthers kid I already mentioned, he got out and got a couple easy buckets. And like you said, it was very similar to the first. You know, one team made a push, the other swung right back. Nobody got up by more than 4 or 5 points. And the important line of demarcation, Mike, this was a 2-point game with 9 minutes left. Marquette was up by 2. With 9 minutes left in the game. They ended up winning by what was it again? 18?
Yeah, 18.
I mean, it's a 2-point game with 9 minutes left, and Marcus Howard decides to turn it into an NBA Jam video game.
Well, not only 9 minutes left and up by only 2 points, but in foul trouble. There was a point where I almost texted everybody and said, "There's 9 minutes left. We're up by 2 points." And the Hausers are in foul trouble. I think Joey Hauser eventually fouled out. Marcus was in foul trouble. Theo might have been threatening in foul trouble. So pretty amazing that only Joey out of that group ended up fouling out. And that's really in deference to Marcus because he was our offense in the second half. He was our team in the second half.
When a player is that hot from the field, it almost like it completely destroys a coach's game plan. You know, it's like when a player is that hot and making everything he throws up there, you can't, as a team, focus on what you normally do out on the basketball court.
Right.
All you're thinking about is preventing that guy from making a three, you know? And so I think that affects them on the offensive end too.
Mm-hmm. The type of shots that he hit, Pete, the constant step backs with the defender right up on him. I mean, the ball handling skill. Let's do this. That was a shooter getting incredibly hot, but let's also recognize this. That's one of the most talented shooters in America, and he has been so for 3 years. Yeah. He had that reputation coming in out of high school. We saw it, obviously, when he led the nation in three-point shooting as a freshman. This is a kid that has practiced his ass off to become that skilled, to put himself in a position to where his level is already high, and if he gets to that another level, it looks like that, and it's insane. By no means do you ever bank on somebody doing that. I mean, I don't know how God knows if we'll ever see him do it again, but good Lord, we saw him go for 52 last. Right,
he had 45 2 weeks ago. Or
right, and he roasted Kansas State 2 weeks ago. I mean, you go into Big East play, I mean, people already knew they had to stop Marcus. People are going to be freaking the F out every time he dribbles over half. Seriously. They
did stop him. They held him to 5 points in the first half.
Yeah.
Right.
He scored 40 in the second.
You know, without burying the lead a little bit too much, not the lead. We hit the lead. But I think we do need to give our due diligence to Joey Hauser. This game, we've seen glimpses in the past, but I think far and away this was the most complete package that he put together. There was that sequence in the first half where he hit 3 threes back to back to back, which was amazing. But I don't even know if that was the best things that he did in this game. I think his defense, for the most part, once he got settled in, was really good. His passing, his driving, his instincts, he's a good one. And our buddy Eric Pond knew it from day one.
I got to admit, I mean, if you listen back to some preseason pods, which I know you guys probably have done, I was skeptical on Joey just because, well, first, I'd never really seen him play. I know he was a highly touted recruit. I was also very, very nervous about his health coming into the year, obviously, with the missing his entire senior year of high school. And the way he has performed and become a pivotal part of this team has really allowed us to have all these solid non-conference wins and to be a much more complete team than we have in the past. I mean, the things that he can do offensively with his skill set and his size is a type of player that we haven't had in a long time.
There's a reason he had 5 stars attached to his name, and we have seen it in recent weeks. He played his ass off against Wisconsin. He was good against Kansas State, and he was excellent. That first half stretch where we were fighting to come back after going down 9, those 3 threes. I mean, there's a reason he's put himself in the starting lineup right now. He has to be out there. He's one of our 5 best players. He has a very bright future in front of him.
So, Brian, I want to put you a little bit on the spot here because before we hopped on the pod, and Neighbor, before you hopped on, Brian, you were saying you were praising Buffalo. You were saying that Buffalo could win the Big East. They would win the Big East. They would be 5th in the Big Ten. I think all of that could be true. I think Buffalo has proved themselves to be a legitimate team. But what do you think that means for Marquette? If we're saying that about Buffalo and we were able to do this to them, how do we realistically process this win for Marquette, and where should our expectations be? Because I tell you right now, I'm sky fucking high. I know we're not going to be that good night in and night out, but to see this team's potential is really eye-opening.
I can help you process this. This
Please.
was a expectation-changing basketball game in that I'm sure the team believed it, but as a fan base that as a whole, I don't want to say everybody, but many have been skeptical at times, especially earlier this season. I can call myself one of them. That this group defensively was not evolving and that looked like we were going to see the same thing, and it might be a fight to make the NCAA tournament. A game like this, especially this stretch between Kansas State to Wisconsin to this game, shows growth, tremendous growth, and it makes you think they could win the league. If they play at a level that resembled those 3 games, that's good enough to compete for the Big East title. Don't know if they'll win it, but that's finishing top 3 in the league with the talent that's on that team. I think having seen the full slate of non-conference, I know we have 1 game left, but seeing the full slate of non-conference, that would be a disappointment to me to finish outside the top 3. So that's where my expectations have gone.
Some people look at Buffalo and see a mid-major team and don't necessarily believe or think that 14 number by their name is justified. But watching them play and watching the diversity of their skills, and like 7 deep, even Perkins, the big guy coming off the bench,
he was great.
He was good. I thought he was a little too ball stoppy and kind of prevented them from doing what led them to a lot of success in the beginning, which was dribble penetration and kick out. But at the same time, I mean, Massenberg, like right off the bat, drilling that 3, I was like, oh shit, we're in for a game. Jordan, the point guard. Not only was he very good on Marcus in the first half, but almost ends up with a triple-double of 8, 7, and 8. And athletic all through up and down that lineup. But let's not kid ourselves. That is a damn good team.
It is.
And experience, too. And the fact that
they start 5 seniors.
Right. And the fact that we were able to weather the storm through foul trouble, I mean, things are only looking up from here.
Marquette fans, there could not be a better early Christmas present than this game. You heard us say it. This could be, maybe, probably is the best win of the Steve Wojciechowski era, maybe one of the most complete wins of the era. Marquette, the new Ken Pom rankings have just come out. Marquette has moved up from 34th to 28th. Buffalo is the 33rd ranked team in Ken Pom. Brian, I like the way you put it. This is an expectation-changing win for Marquette to move us from, hey, maybe we could challenge for the Big East title to we can do it. Let's put it together. So
that stretch in the second half when Marcus was nailing every shot he took, and Theo blocked every shot that they took. It's like, it was fucking awesome. It was like, we have, not only do we have a killer on offense, we have one to pair him with on the defensive ends. Like, when can we remember a time when we could say that?
I don't think there was a time.
I thought I'll go to not that it's the Bible anybody, but those that follow Mr. Charles Pierce on Twitter, obviously.
Sure.
Yep. Prominent Marquette fan, always has good things he throws around following the team. He tweeted out just a little bit ago, this is the best I've seen a Marquette team play collectively since 2003. So, I mean, take that with a grain of sand. He just say that's a guy who's watched a lot of Marquette basketball. So
I'd say that Miami Sweet 16 game was a pretty high watermark for me.
I would also agree.
But this was pretty damn close.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here on the Real Chili Podcast. By the time you're hearing this, be sure to keep an eye out on our feed within the next couple of days before Christmas for sure for a great podcast with us and with Paint Touches, breaking down Marquette, breaking down this team and looking ahead to Big East Conference and what Marquette can expect from some of our frequent Big East opponents. So all of that and more, that's our Christmas gift to you. One hell of a win. This is a great way to nearly wrap up the non-conference. Fellas, thanks for hopping on. Good talking to you as always. We'll talk to you next time.
I have one more thing to say, Mike.
Get in there.
Kudos to Jamal Cain. Doing it for his boy,
there you
Greg
go.
Elliott.
Yep.
Who's out for the year. Jamal Cain had a big impact in this game after not getting any minutes for the majority of the season. He had a huge impact on a couple of nice offensive plays. And there's so many times when he drives the ball where it's just like, make a decision and be assertive. Be assertive whenever you have the ball. But he made a 15-foot step back. Yeah, he turned it over a couple times, but he chased down that and had that block that caused some momentum to go on our side.
Yep.
And I thought it was a big stepping stone game for him against a big opponent in a big matchup. I thought this is going to do wonders for his confidence going forward.
Great point. Great point. I'm glad we didn't leave that out. All right. Signing off for Pete Worth, signing off for Brian Henry, and for everyone else here at the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Merry Christmas from the Real Chili Podcast, and we'll talk to you next time.